So Bruce, just we're doing a history thing for the family, and tell me a little bit about your mom and dad. Let's just get a little background here.
What would you like?
Well, tell me your dad, your mom, kind of what they did, who they were. Give me their names.
Well, there was Marvin and Flavia. He was Marvin Lindquist, and she was Flavia Peterson, of course.
And what did your dad do for a living?
He was a tool and die maker at automatic voting machine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And your mom, was she a stay-at-home mom, or was she a...
Yeah.
She worked?
Yeah, she was a stay-at-home mom.
And Flavia being the Peterson part of it,
Yeah.
tell me about her mom and dad.
Okay, well, that was Emil and Edith.
Right.
Emil was, of course, Peterson, and Grandma, she was Edith Carlson.
Oh, really? I never knew that.
Yeah, from, she lived in Portville.
Okay.
Right on the corner, and the house is still there.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't look like it used to, but it's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, they met, believe it or not, in Limestone, Pennsylvania.
And how did that happen?
No, her parents, they met, Grandpa, of course, he grew up in Ludlow, and they only went to school till 8th grade. Then they went to work in the woods. And he was a peelie, they called him.
Bark peeler.
A bark peeler with a broad axe and an adze. I've got both those tools at home.
No kidding.
Yeah, so you want to talk about an OSHA-approved operation.
Anything but, yeah.
Yeah, but in any case, you got to remember in the 1800s, you had only a couple of professionals in town. You had a doctor, maybe a dentist. There was also the doctor. And thank you, Cindy.
My pleasure.
And you had maybe a barrister or somebody that read a book about law. And you had the town barber. Mm-hmm. And the town barber was also like a first aid person today. They fixed wounds, like if you cut your finger or cut your hand, you'd go to the barber shop. You wouldn't go to the doctor and bother him.
Right.
And so, but also men got shaved every day. And so the barber shop was a busy place. And of course, in the late 1800s, it was a very busy town, Ludlow. But as the timber left and the oil and gas drilling quit, the town started to go downhill. The bark for the tannery was gone. Greg, you remember J.B. Curtis Tannery?
I do.
Yeah. And so suddenly they moved to Jamestown. But Grandpa went to barber school in Buffalo. And that's Ted Carlson was in the class with him. And that's how he met Grandma.
I'll be darned.
Yeah, because you wonder how the two got together from Ludlow to Portville.
So in Ludlow, your grandfather was born what year?
1888, I think.
So in the scheme of things, was he the oldest boy?
No, there was some older.
Oscar might have been the oldest.
I don't know. I've got it at home.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he was the oldest or not. He was one of the older ones because he was too old to go in World War I. In Eric, Otto, Oscar, I know those went in World War I.
Yeah. And Hannah was a nurse. I remember seeing that picture of that World War I. And their name's on the plaque.
Yeah.
In Olmsted Park.
Right.
Wildcat Park.
Well, yeah, Oh, by the way, it's 100th anniversary of Wildcat Park in 2 weeks.
No kidding.
Yeah.
If I'm around, maybe take advantage of it.
Yeah.
So your grandfather, at what point did he decide he wanted to be a barber? You know, was this...
Excuse me, I really don't know exactly what point. But it must have been he was in his late teens or mid-teens or something like that.
Was he back in Was he in Jamestown at that time, or was he in Ludlow?
In Ludlow, because my mother was born in Ludlow.
Oh, okay.
And Grandma and Grandpa, they lived in Uncle Don's house, because
Oh my gosh.
that was a duplex, you know.
Oh, didn't know. Up where Don always lived.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll be darned.
that was a duplex house.
I'll be darned.
And so they would be, they lived on, Grandma and Grandpa lived on one side and Don lived on the other. Because I think he worked as a barber in Ludlow for a period of time.
Right.
Yeah. But then it must be about the time that Otto came back from the service
Okay.
that they moved, that Otto and Dave and Emil moved to Jamestown.
Okay. And Emil was a barber and continued to be a barber. Right?
Yeah.
And where was I remember him in the Goki building, but
Yeah.
where was he? Where was his place?
Yeah, well, in the Goki, before that, he was under Woolworths.
Ah,
I've got pictures of that barber shop.
downstairs. You'd go into Woolworth and go downstairs?
No, you kind of, I forget, I was an awful little kid when he moved out of there and moved into the Goki building. I mean, maybe 3 or 4 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I always remember going to the second floor. My grandfather Otto would take me up there.
And turn right.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, a friend of mine, Brad Morris,
Yeah.
you know, you had U.S. Energy, you know, he owned the Goki building. And I went up there with him one day, oh, this is probably 25, 30 years ago. And sure enough, there was, the glass door was still there.
Oh, no.
Emil F. Peterson, barber. Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. And so that was his full-time profession.
Yeah.
And your grandmother Edith, did she do anything, or she was
No.
housewife?
She's pretty much, yeah. But you know, in the summer, they took care of the ball boys, and that was a full-time job.
So tell me about that. What do you remember about because I remember her telling me about it, my dad talking about
Yeah.
Aunt Edith would have 2 or 3 ball players, right?
Yeah, she'd have 3 of them generally, 2 or 3, yeah.
Would they have their own cars then? And
Generally, no. I don't remember them having cars. Most, they rode the bus, or
a pretty robust bus system, yeah.
yeah. And there was several houses on Catlin that had ball players.
Okay.
I know Whitford's across the street had a couple, and I think there was another. I think Zoe Nordland had one.
Yeah. Did you get to know them at all?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Did you go to the ballpark and watch them play, or did you?
Oh yeah. Grandma and Grandpa never had a car until 1960. That's another story. But Zoe Nordland, or sometimes Otto would come pick them up, and we'd go to the ball game.
I'll be darned.
Yeah, always sat in the bleacher. You know, it cost a dime more to sit in the grandstand. You can hear that one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, but what's always remarkable is when you see pictures of the 50s,
Yeah.
you know, they're in their coats and ties. I mean, they're really dressed up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was a social event.
Yes, and it's sad today, the people, they don't dress up and they don't respect themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't get me started on that.
Well, it is different, entirely different.
Yeah.
So, and what I remember a lot about your grandmother is the fact that she was such a good cook.
Yeah.
A baker.
Yeah.
And I can remember her cinnamon rolls.
Yeah.
I mean, I can taste them now.
Uh-huh.
So, when you look at this book, And I know you'd see people like Don.
Mm-hmm.
What do you remember about Don Peterson?
Oh, a lot. There was times when I was a little kid, well, I was probably, 12, 13. They'd say, Uncle Eric is going to pick you up and after work on Friday, because he worked at Marlin Rockwell in Jamestown and drove back and forth to Ludlow every day.
Who did, Don?
Eric.
Oh, Eric, really?
Yeah. He and another guy, they drove every day. In the wintertime, they'd rent a room, like maybe at the East End Hotel or the Bullfrog, and stay overnight if it was really bad.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't. See, you're about
Yeah.
found of knowledge. So Eric worked there, and Don, what did he do?
Don, he worked at Kane Glass when I was real little. But then when he got hurt in the car wreck, when Aunt Julia was killed.
He was in the car.
Yeah, that's when it left him kind of crippled. And then I kind of think they were going to, I don't remember if it was Aunt Jen's or her husband's funeral. They were coming back. And the car was broadsided, and Aunt Julia was killed, and Don was injured fairly bad. And from then on, I think Aunt Jen kind of took care of him from that point on.
Yeah.
It would be because, well, Uncle Don, one time we went to the bank in Kane with Eric. I was down there carrying firewood when it sent down there to work, which I loved anyways. We went in the bank and he said, no, wait, they call me Mr. Peterson in here, which they did.
Well, I think he probably had no reason. He didn't spend money on probably anything.
No. We'd go over to the Hillcrest around the corner there.
Yeah.
And that was an Olson, you know. They were related to Aunt Nina.
Yes.
You know, all them Olsons were related. And, you know, he'd say, we get a piece of pie, and he says, you can have 2 scoops of ice cream. That was a big deal, see.
Yeah. And at his house, for the longest time, I'm thinking it didn't have plumbing, or certainly didn't have indoor facilities. He had an outhouse.
Yeah, he had an outhouse, had a 2-holer. He had electricity, but it was the old tube and spool, and there wasn't much to it. He had a telephone, because, see, and he had a pitcher pump, because he got his water from a spring house on the hill up back, and both sides of the house were fed by that. And he cooked with a wood stove.
My golly.
Yeah.
And he didn't put in any boilers. It was just Don, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was a confirmed bachelor.
Yeah.
I don't think he had any female interest that I'm aware of.
I don't know. But yeah, no, he lived alone, and you know, the people in Ludlow, a lot of them, you know, they felt so sorry for Don, and that, you know, because he lived, you know, very, very frugally and everything, but when he passed away, he was very wealthy.
Yeah. Who got his money?
It was split between the living blood relation. Lyle, I've got the will at home.
Yeah, just curious.
Yeah, I've got it sometime. I show it to you. But I found it was at Grandma's house.
Yeah, yeah.
When we cleaned that out, I saved all those old papers. There's a lot of neat stuff there.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
But
Yeah.
but they split it up. Lyle got some. My mother's got some, and I think they got about 17, 18,000 apiece, which was a lot of money in 1962, 63, 64.
And what I remember about Don, I'm speaking of, was when we would go visit him, and my grandfather would be there to take us. He would just, let's get in the car, my brother and I. And that was always Randy and I, and we would go, but whenever we went out for dinner or something, and Mike, I don't know who paid, but it was always, Don always referred to my brother Otto. Brother Otto. I mean, it was always a prefix.
Yep.
So you know it was my brother this, my sister-in-law Rachel, but that's how he
That's the
introduced me.
Swedish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's great because it identifies it immediately.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's the Swedes. You know, like your father would be Farfar.
Yeah.
Yeah. And your mother's mother, your grandfather's be more.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
And Don, I don't know if he wrote to you, but when I was in college, I got letters from Don.
He passed away in 64.
64, was it?
Yeah, somewhere's in there.
Okay, my college. How the heck did what I got? Maybe at home, must have been home. But I remember he actually wrote a couple of notes, and I have them still.
Yeah.
Don.
Yeah,
Uncle Don.
Yeah, 64, 65.
Yeah.
It was kind of sad. He wasn't feeling well, and Eric drove him to the hospital in Kane, and which is of course the closest hospital, and he was on. They were examining him, and the story I got is he had a bleeding ulcer and bled to death right then. Yeah. Or something like that. It was real sudden.
Yeah, I think he died a little bit after my grandfather, who died in 64. So it's all that time period.
It was in that time frame, yeah. It was in the summer, I remember that.
And then there's Eric.
Yeah.
Always a humongous Pirates fan.
Yeah.
And I have upstairs, because he would listen, when he got older, he was disabled, and just sat in his chair and watched every Pirate.
Every single game, yes.
And he scored it.
Yes.
And he had the blue sheets, and he put notes.
Yeah.
And after he died, which was probably early 70s, he lived a little bit longer than Don.
Oh, yeah, it was up. Yeah, because both of my boys were born. Because I know we took them down to see Eric several times, when they were just babies. Yeah.
Because I would come back from law school, from Dickinson, which is near Carlisle, coming home, and I would always just kind of pull in to say hello to Nina and and they're always polite and nice, but he'd always have his blue sheets. And so when he passed, I remember a couple years later, I was driving back, and I pulled in, and Nina was there, still living at the old house.
Yeah, she lived quite a while later. Yeah.
Yeah, and I said, "Oh, by the way, whatever happened to those blue sheets?" He goes, "Well, I got them in a box. You want them?" And I go, "Yeah, I really would." So I brought them home, and I remember my dad and I was a huge box.
Oh, yeah.
And I brought it home, and between my dad and I, looking at not so much the scoring, but his comments, because everybody was a jerk. That stunk tonight. He pulled no punches.
And some of the language in it, of course, when we were kids, we used to read through for the, what he'd call some of the. Oh, it was hilarious. Yeah.
So that was Eric. So he worked at. So he was born in Ludlow like the rest of them.
Yeah.
And the story I also got was everybody in Ludlow, I believe, was a Republican.
Oh, yeah.
except Eric.
Really?
Yeah. So they wanted him to be a official. In Ludlow. They said he'd be damned if he'd change his party so he could be an official. It's one of those typical Swedish. "Nah, I'm not going to do that." And so he worked at SKF or Martin Rockwell rather.
Yeah.
And then throughout that whole time period.
Yeah. Well, he and Aunt Nina, they weren't married until 49, 50.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Forever. They kind of dated each other for 25 years.
Yeah.
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 Because that was always another story in the family that, if you dated somebody for a long time, it was, what are you, Uncle Eric?
Uh-huh.
I mean, that was,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
25 years.
Yeah.
And then once he got done with Marlon Rockwell, then did he
He
work or
retired.
just retired?
Yeah, he retired then. Boy, he had a 62 Falcon. I'll never forget that. You rode to Ludlow with him with that thing. You were taking your life in your own hands.
Because I recall Falcons, just little cars, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know how well he could see or how old he was then, but it wasn't pretty.
Now, would he come up to Jamestown and pick you up, or would he?
No, well, when he worked.
Oh, he worked again.
Yeah, you'd go over to, they might say, because you walked every place. And
Yeah.
they might say, because Otto and Rachel, they lived on Price Street.
Right, sure.
And they might say, Eric's going to pick you up over to Uncle Otto's. So because Grandma lived on Catlin, it was no big deal to walk down Catlin, then up 8th Street to Lakeview, and then down Price Street, see?
Yeah.
And you walked everywhere or rode your bike.
So would you spend time in Ludlow with Eric? Like, would you spend the night there? Or?
Oh, I stay overnight. A lot of times I'd stay with at Don's house.
Okay.
It's the summertime,
Yeah.
and then maybe bring in firewood for him and stuff like that. And we'd go over to Nina's for supper. Then in the morning, my parents would pick me up, and we'd go down to the farm in Johnsonburg. See, they went right through Ludlow.
Oh, of course, I forgot. Yeah.
Yeah. So then we'd go. They might pick me up on Saturday noon or so, something like that, and we'd go down there. And sometimes I might stay for 2 or 3, 4 days.
Wow. You had an experience like nobody else, Bruce, because Bobby would not have had that same experience.
No.
I would assume Eric would have retired by then.
Yeah. Yeah, he was retired when Uncle Don passed away. In fact, I think quite a couple years before that. Mm-hmm. I think he retired probably 60 or 61, maybe a little, I don't remember just exactly.
And Nina was an Olson.
Yeah.
And then there was a chief who was Nina's brother or somebody.
Norman,
yes.
Yeah, Norman and Joyce. They were lived with Eric and Nina. And Joyce just passed away a couple years ago.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, she became a ward of the state and was living in like a nursing home over in Sheffield.
Okay. Norm.
Yeah.
And Norm, I think, didn't he work like for National Fuel Gas or one of those guys did?
Yeah, I know.
Up as you go towards from Ludlow.
Wellbank.
Yeah.
Yeah, but one of them, Joyce, worked at Blair and Warren.
Okay.
Because they used to get second clothing.
Yep.
And that was a big deal.
Oh yeah. And so that's Eric. Now, would you have known David?
Oh yeah.
Now, David, I didn't know him at all. Tell me about David.
I didn't know. He and, oh, I can't think of his wife's name now.
Was it Olive?
Yeah, Aunt Olive, yeah.
Who lived for a long time.
They lived on Cole Avenue.
Okay.
You know where the house on Cole Avenue is? Above Foot, that's with a gambrel roof?
Yeah.
It's still there. That's the house they lived in.
Okay.
Yeah. And I remember the day he passed away. Because I was in school, maybe first grade, or I was going to Fletcher School then, and my mother called down my dad at work and told him, and so we had to go down to the barber shop and tell Grandpa that David passed away.
And what did David do?
I think he worked at MRC, or I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was your, and then again, Dave had, his wife was Olive, and
Yeah.
Olive was at that family reunion. If you remember, my dad found her, got her, and she was in Kane someplace. So she clearly was the oldest
Oh gosh, yeah.
person there of that vintage.
Yeah. But she had a sister, I remember, Lottie, and Lottie's husband was an engineer
Okay.
for the Erie Railroad, and he was always fun to talk to.
Just out of curiosity, Emil, was he close to one of the brothers or over the other? Was there? Do you know,
It didn't seem to be,
Yeah,
no.
they all treated all equally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that was my observation of Otto. Everybody was all
Yeah.
equal. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Everybody. And let's see. So that's David, Anna. Julia died in the car wreck.
Yeah.
Would you have known her at all?
I don't remember her much, no. And I remember Aunt Jen, but not real well.
Yeah.
Because they lived in Ludlow,
Right.
or in Youngstown, Ohio, see. And I forget, when she passed away, I was fairly young.
All right.
Because she was only 55, I see in the book
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Jen, she died in church, didn't she?
I don't remember. All I know is my dad took off work, and we lived on Devon Street then, and of course my brother was little, and Alice and Julius Hultquist came and stayed with him because he wasn't. I don't think he was in school yet.
Okay.
And Grandma and Grandpa and my mom and dad went down to Youngstown to the funeral.
Right. And let's see, now that, and Otto, what's your remembrances of my grandfather?
Oh gosh, he was just a nice guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. We used to after Rachel passed away, he was lonesome and he'd come up to the house all the time.
Would he?
Oh yeah. He'd go, he was always just looking for something to do, go for a ride. But he didn't live long after Rachel passed.
He did not. She died in January and he died in July.
Is that what it was?
64, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he, of course, I have many fond memories. He loved baseball. He was a traveling salesman all
Yeah.
his life for furniture. And so I think he was gone, hard to piece it together, but I think he was gone like Monday morning, just got in the car and came back Friday. I mean, he was gone, so it was really much my dad, who was the only child, and my grandmother, Rachel.
Yeah, see, I never knew, what went on during the week or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know he was a furniture salesman, and
Right. And let's see, I think are those the main old timers? What do you know? I should ask the main one. Is what do you know? What do you recall your grandfather Emil or anybody else talking about Gust? Gust Peterson.
Not a whole lot. I can tell you, I've got a lot of. There's Grandpa in the barber shop there, with a cigar in his mouth.
That's how I remember him.
Yeah. Yeah. Mrs. Nordstrom, the pastor's wife, called it his nipple. He'd go to church and go upstairs. He'd go outside. He'd take the ashes off. He'd set it up on the windowsill.
Yeah.
Yeah. And after church, he'd pick it up and light it and walk down the hill.
Because that was it? Did he go to CMA Church or which one? It's right up on the hill, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he went to Bethel Lutheran.
Bethel Lutheran.
They were some of the founding members of that.
Yeah, I see. There's your.
Yeah, there's his whole picture. Yeah.
What I remember, again, going into your grandpa's barber shop.
Yeah.
You'd sit in a chair, and again, I'd wait while my grandfather got barbered, and then it was my turn. But he had a green 1941 hardbound Who's Who baseball book.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Ancient history. It was the only one he had. So I read that and read that and read it 100 times. And I'm not sure how it happened, but I think when they closed the shop, my dad got the book, as a memento.
He might have given it to him, yeah.
Yeah. So I think, and so he closed the shop. And so I've still got that. It's just one of those memories. Over time you get access to all that stuff, but this was the one that was my memory of Uncle Emil.
Yeah. That's some neat stuff in here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Oscar went to Washington. He never come back.
Yeah. Did you ever meet him?
No. The story I was told is he left about the same time my mother was born.
Because he was born likewise in Ludlow, but was in World War I. And I think my grandfather went. Maybe I've seen him once. And then, of course, subsequently we saw Bob and.
Yeah, they used to come around. Yeah.
Yeah. But that was the connect. Bob and his sister. I'm just drawing a blank. Very gregarious, and they were they loved. If anybody loved those family reunions, they did.
Yeah.
They loved that stuff. And so when we all got together at Olmsted, if you remember that time period, with I think your mom was there.
Yeah.
Were you there, Bruce? You were there.
Pardon?
You were there at that reunion in Olmsted?
No.
No?
No.
So, anyways, it was just it was interesting.
Yeah.
To see them all.
That's pretty neat stuff there.
And let's see, Gust, as we know it, had 2 wives.
Yeah. One passed away. Our grandparents' mother passed away. Then he married Anna Louise.
Anna Louise.
Yeah.
And it was I want to say Ma Mary at Maud.
Ma Mary, yeah.
Ma Mary and
yeah.
Did you remember your grandfather talking about any of them, either of them?
Not a whole lot, no.
Yeah.
No.
Well, what I find interesting, Bruce, is your wonderful interest in Ludlow and where the homestead are, and I'm not even sure how you even tracked down that one day when we were out deep into the woods. How did you get that information? What was the lead?
Well, of course, Joe Cass. Years ago, I hunted down off of Mudlick, which was on top, and you hunt down into that same area, a county line run, in the apple trees. And that's when I came back and I told Uncle Eric, because he said, you find the apple trees, that's where it used to be, down in there. And it's not too far from the end of Mudlick Run down into there. It's the way things go through the woods. I mean, you're talking a couple-hour walk. But I found the apple trees in that. And then Ray Swanson told me that's because there used to be a Boy Scout camp up in there somewheres.
Okay.
And he remembers staying there as a kid.
And that we're talking about is what they used to call scramiel?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
The hell you're in. In hell you're in, something like that. Schlemiel.
Schlemiel.
Yeah.
And because I know that, we found that, some foundation.
Yeah.
And it probably was it. We don't know.
Well, sure. Well, that's it. And we found the stones where the creek was dammed up. Which would have been, he was a teamster, and we found the Ludlow Trail. That's how they got to Ludlow.
That's right. That was the key. There. Remember we found that guy who was up there?
Yeah, that Forrester. Yeah.
Such dumb luck.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a nice guy.
Yeah, well, that was helpful for us to take some pictures and a couple of. I found the video of our ventures up there.
That was pretty neat. Yeah.
Did you stay in touch with Ray and Art Swanson and any of those people?
Not much. Ray, a little bit. We used to go. He lived in Mount Jewett,
right.
And if you go right by their house to the MDF plant, we used to buy MDF at the plant just down the road there, and I stopped a couple times.
What's MDF? What was that?
Medium density fiber.
Okay.
That we used to sell. And well, normally I didn't go down, one of the guys went down, but a couple times I went down and picked up a load just for get out of the shop, and I'd stop and see Ray and Lucille.
Perfect. Was there anybody else that you kind of kept in touch with?
No. But that was just by happenstance that I found them again because of looking to find out exactly where Schlemiel was.
Yeah. Well, that's great that you did that. Wasn't there a guy in Ludlow too that was helpful?
Joe Kassenbach.
Yeah.
Yeah. He passed away, but just a couple weeks ago, a fella sent me an email, and it was Joe's son, Todd. Yeah, inviting me to go, make sure I come down to the 100th anniversary of Wildcat Park.
I'm going to have to look at that, and if I'm around, I know I'm not around next weekend, but I might be. It seems like we should do that.
Yeah, I think it's the same weekend as the 100th anniversary for the fire company.
Okay.
I think it's that weekend, and that's that whole thing. That whole weekend is going to be awful busy.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So talk about you. You come back. When did you graduate from high school?
When?
What year? Yeah.
64.
64 and Jamestown?
Yeah. No, Southwestern.
Southwestern?
Yeah.
So tell me. the state employee of the fish hatchery, and then what?
Well, well, they didn't pay hardly anything. That was a sad thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I started building kitchens in my basement.
Really?
And I started Southern Tier Wood, and I had that 35 years.
35 years, my God.
Yeah.
You had that at various locations too, didn't you?
Pardon?
You had at various locations, didn't you?
Yeah, we had the mill on Fairmount, and then I bought Eastern Plywood Corp in 2000.
That's from Netsker, right?
Yeah,
Yep. And so you were on Jones and Gifford.
and we ran both places.
Yeah. Did you enjoy that?
Yes. But no, I'm so glad I'm out of business because of the way the state is.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
They would have taxed you mentally and actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not fun at all.
Well, I know. Oh, you knew Phil Erickson, the lawyer.
Sure.
And he told me one time we were having coffee over at the Chatterbox, before it was a Chatterbox even, and he said, there's two ways to survive in this world. Is to be so small that they don't notice you, or so big they don't dare to touch you.
Right.
But you get in the middle, you're the target for everybody.
So true.
And that's where we were, yeah.
So true. Well, this has been great. Thanks
Yeah.
for sharing all this stuff.
Yeah, I remember, I don't know, Rachel's dog, Curly. He was a little black and white
Black
Cocker
Cat?
Spaniel.
Yeah.